Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Swipe Up, episode 204. This is the show where I give my opinions on current events. And people that don't like my opinions, let me know in the comments, and I ignore them. Which, for those, it's very cringe what I'm doing. I'm always wrong. Anyway, let's get it started, shall we? With, of course, the biggest story that's happened this past week. Obviously, by the time this episode comes out, it will have been a few days, so maybe the worship, the idol worship of this person has died down. But I think it's absolutely ridiculous. However, this story is funny. Drug dealers are doing discounts on Coke in honor of the Queen. Queen Elizabeth III, I think, died because she was old. She's an old lady who is pretty much the representative of white supremacy. Colonized, their family responsible for colonizing a bunch of people, enslaving people, putting them in concentration camps, rape and murder, and all of those things. All of the great things that come along with colonization. A person who was bestowed this thing because apparently God chose their family as a superior being in order to reign over the people. It's just absolutely ridiculous. The people that worship the monarchy, the people that worship Queen Elizabeth, the people that, basically are cheering on the ideal, the idol of what is basically white supremacy. They felt that they were superior than everybody else, not only in being a king or queen to begin with, to be a royal family to begin with. They are the ones bestowed, blessed by God to rule over the country, which they were able to be horrible at, and the monarchy crumbled, and no longer are they in charge. But they still were responsible for a lot of bad things that happened, including under her watch, bad things happening to a lot of people. So there are a lot of people that are celebrating. People in Ireland, South Africa, India. There's a lot of countries that were negatively impacted by the UK and by her and her family. So I am on the side of those people who are celebrating. I'm not necessarily celebrating. I could care less. She was an old person. Old people die all the time. I don't think she's necessarily better or worse. Actually, she's probably a lot worse than a lot of other old people, but old people die. She wasn't taken in her prime by any means necessary. And seeing how her successor, there's a clip online about him making somebody move. He can't be bothered to move something on his desk that he's about to sit at, that he flips his wrist. The whole idea of monarchy and kings and queens is absolutely disgusting. So it is funny that drug dealers are doing discounts, not only on cocaine, but other things. Let me read this. Drug dealers are making the Queen's death. The drug dealers are marking the Queen's death by texting customers their condolences alongside special discounts on products for cocaine, weed, and ketamine. One dealer sent a text 13 minutes after the Queen's death was announced on Thursday, offering an ounce of weed for 150 pounds. I don't know how good of a deal that is. Sounds a little expensive still. Maybe it's a good deal. I don't really know the conversion rate. And grams of ketamine for 30 pounds. They then told their customers they were offering a, quote, Queen's death discount on everything. Ask me for details, end quote. Another dealer said they were reducing the prices of their top-of-the-range Bolivian flake for 96 pounds a gram to match the age at which the Queen died. In New York, within hours of the news, weed sellers were starting to sell bags of weed with images of Queen Elizabeth on them. I think that's hilarious. taking advantage of a popular cultural thing. There's a lot of people have emotions one way or the other. I tend to be more sympathetic with the people who have been colonized by the British, whose families generationally have been destroyed by the British. I mean, as far as the jewels that reside on all of their gaudy things that were stolen from so many countries. I mean, really, not the best kind of family, not the best kind of lineage. Their history is a bit tainted. So, you know, I don't necessarily want to celebrate her death. I don't know. I don't care, but I do appreciate the people that are. I think they've more than deserved it. She hasn't affected my life. I mean, I'm a white dude in America, so I already have my privilege just existing the way I am, and I celebrate the people that are celebrating her death. How about that? I celebrate the Irish and the Africans and the Indians that are celebrating somebody that really destroyed their generational livelihood. The same with even Canada, the indigenous people of Canada. Just a lot of people, a lot of bad things in the name of the Queen have been done, and she is no longer there. And her old son is now taking over, the oldest king to ever sit on the throne. I think he's 73. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Let's move on. There's going to be a bunch of people crying about that one. Let's take a little break from the Ray Taylor Show to promote my live art streams. That's right, I am an artist as well as a podcaster, and I paint live every Thursday at 4:20 Pacific time. Head on over, the best place ever for streaming, youtube.com/inspired disorder. That's right, every Thursday at 4:20, you can watch me paint the many faces. Every week, I paint 7 new faces of abstract portraits, ink on paper, and you can watch that happen. You can hang out with me while I listen to a classic episode from one of my favorite podcasts. Head on over to youtube.com/inspired disorder and check it out. Say hi, let's hang out, let's have some fun, and let's paint some faces. Now let's get back to the show. Let's move on. New California law could raise fast food minimum wage to $22 an hour. Republicans are crying. Ooh, you shouldn't be able to make that much money. People should be working slave wages. You can't afford stuff. How dare you pay for things? According to inflation, minimum wage, if it had kept up with inflation over the years, should be $25 an hour. I've seen even more. I've seen up in the 30s too, to kind of go along with the cost of living, but it hasn't. In California, minimum wage I think is $15, so this will bump the pay for fast food workers specifically up to $22. Let me read this. In a move, the restaurant industry warns could raise fast food prices. I mean, that's to start an article like that. I clearly see what side you're on, NBC Palm Springs, right? Oh, it's bad that they raise prices because that just means the businesses are going to charge more. Meanwhile, in all the other countries that these fast food restaurants, these big chains like McDonald's, they have no problem paying amazing wages to their employees while still getting good pricing. It doesn't eat into it. Just the articles like this will allow businesses to then gouge prices because there's no protections for people, really. Although this is trying to add some protections to it. So California governor signed into law a bill Monday creating a quote-unquote fast food council to determine standards of pay, hours, and working conditions for the state's fast food workers. Under this legislation, the council could raise the minimum wage for fast food workers to up to $22 an hour. So they could. Doesn't necessarily mean they will. But that is one thing they could do. So $22 an hour, well above the $15 an hour minimum wage. For companies that have more than 26 workers. The new standards apply to chains with at least 100 locations nationally. So it's only big chains. Looking at McDonald's, Subway, Taco Bell, Carl's Jr., Wendy's. Major corporations who can effortlessly pay more because their profits are ridiculous. The CEOs for those companies probably make exponentially more more than their average employees by a lot. But they're going to cry. I mean, you see the Republican politicians crying about it now. It's like, this is just going to keep kids from wanting to get jobs. It's like, no, it's going to allow kids to survive. It's going to allow people to get jobs to survive. Like, they want people to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, but they don't want them to make money doing it. Like, I don't understand. It's just their logic is so flawed. Their logic is so flawed. They just clearly don't care. So everything they say is some kind of excuse why people shouldn't get paid money. They have this magical idea of a free market. Like, companies really give a shit? Like, there's any real competition? Like, these companies aren't colluding with each other anyway? There's no such thing as free market. Small businesses get destroyed by these companies because there's no way you can compete without regulation of some sort. So this doesn't attack small mom and pop restaurants. I'm sure there's going to be a push from a lot of the companies that own these fast food restaurants to change the definition of fast food in order to not apply to these regulations. Generally is what they do. To skirt regulation, they redefine what they are in order to not those regulations not to be applicable to what they're doing. I would imagine is what they're doing. So I think that's great. I think, having a council, having people, like there should be councils for a lot of things. There should be unions in all of these buildings. There should be councils, like public groups of people, real people, helping to make decisions to keep businesses, including law enforcement, from destroying human life and paying their people fairly, to having respect for the people who live and work in those towns, in those cities, for those businesses, instead of taking advantage of those people, paying them as little as possible. Also, these companies are trying to automate and trying to get robots and trying to get technology to replace people. I mean, you go into most McDonald's nowadays, they have the self-order menus. A lot of that stuff, a lot of jobs people would be getting paid, these minimum wage jobs, are going to be replaced by robotics and computers and AI. So there is that. But they're going to do that regardless. This is just going to speed it up for some of them. I don't know. I think it's great. I think it's great to get a job making $22 an hour, a shitty job. It's not like it's an easy job. Working in food service sucks. You get treated like shit, especially at a job like this. Any job where people think you don't make that much money, they will treat you like garbage. And you should be paid a premium to be treated like garbage. Like, you definitely shouldn't be making like pennies to be treated inhuman, right? At least have a paycheck to kind of compensate the dehumanization you suffer on a daily basis. And everybody that wants to cry about my opinion on that, feel free. But you're just showing that you've never worked fast food. You have zero respect for people that are trying to work, to trying to make a life for themselves, to try and pay for housing, to try and pay for food, to try and make a living, to try and pull themselves up by the bootstraps, right? Because it costs a lot of money to just exist, let alone succeed and thrive in this country. And everybody complaining about people actually getting paid a living wage can just go suck some shit and then cry about it in my comments, and I'll delete you. How about that? Let's move on to something that people were crying about in the comments already. Gulf Arab nations asked Netflix to remove quote-unquote offensive LGBTQ-friendly content. Saudi state television also aired an interview with a quote-unquote behavioral consultant who described Netflix as a quote official sponsor of homosexuality. This is what conservatives and Republicans desperately want to do in the United States. I mean, you see them already doing it in Florida. You see them doing it in Texas. Censoring books, banning books, banning like educational curriculum, making it illegal to be a certain type of a person, like inaccurately labeling people as predators in order to demonize them, in order for them to be attacked by their dummy sheep, their stupid sheep people that just do whatever they say. You know, the people that are absolutely terrified of a drag queen reading a kid's story. Meanwhile, priests around the country, around the globe, constantly and regularly molest children. Mormon, Catholic, Christian, all of those religions, regularly. The joint statement issued on behalf of the Committee of the Gulf Cooperation Council made the request saying unspecified programs, quote, contradict Islamic and social values and principles. Similarly, the so-called Christians in the United States are using the same excuses for why they want to ban books. They want to make legislation that makes being a certain type of a person illegal. They want to demonize you. The move comes after countries in the Muslim world in June banned public showing of the movie Lightyear over a brief moment showing two lesbian characters kissing. After that, the company's Disney Plus streaming service said, quote, content available should align with local regulatory requirements in Gulf Arab countries. So, yeah, of course, Disney, which is a very conservative company, like the fact that there was a brief scene of anything implying any other gender other than straight in a Disney product is very unusual. That's how conservative Disney is. And of course they would, because Disney cares only about money. They don't care about trying to make the good art. They don't care about being representative. They care that that kind of stuff is popular. They can make money off of it. They pretend to care. But they will gladly oblige any of these right-wing things. I mean, I would assume Disney has unpaused their contributions to the Conservative Party, right? Because they only paused their contributions with the whole kerfuffle over in Florida, right, with DeSantis. But I'm sure they have gone back to their donations or doing donations in some other roundabout way. Because Disney really only cares about money. They don't care about the products that they constantly buy up, the franchises they constantly buy up. They don't care. They just know there's like loyal, worshiping fans of Star Wars that they can squeeze every last penny out of. They know that there's loyal, worshiping fans of Marvel that they can squeeze every last penny out of. They have tons of IP that they will just constantly regurgitate to squeeze every last penny. They will raise their prices constantly to squeeze every last penny they can because they only care about profit. They're not a magical world of happiness. They are a consumer-based corporation trying to maximize profit and will gladly bend to the whims of any kind of country that wants to censor them. Netflix, on the other hand, different story. I would imagine companies would oblige. It's the same thing with in America. If in a couple years, if the Republicans get office and we just sink farther and farther into fascism and censorship just gets more and more to where, reading the Bible becomes mandatory in classes, where Christianity becomes the national religion, where people are forced to worship and pray for religious beliefs, they would force companies to do the same thing, right? The exact same thing. And it's a form of censorship. And when I mention this as a comment on this post, somebody's like, what do you mean? Conservatives are all about freedom. They're not about censorship. It's like, wake up. What do you think they are doing in these countries? All in these states, all of their actions, the Conservative Party, is to restrict freedoms, right? Now, federally, there's no protection of abortion. So now in states, there's a lot of states removing freedoms from women. Half of the population is considered to be a second-class citizen, not allowed to make health decisions based on their body, are forced to give birth, forced to carry a fetus, whether it was incestually put in, raped into them, doesn't matter. They do not care. Women are second-class citizens. And that's the GOP doing that. They opened up so states can do that, and they would love to change that federally. They would love to eliminate rights federally for not only women, but for people of color, interracial marriage, anything that protects the separation of church and state. These are all things that they want to do. They want to ban contraception. They want to do all of the things to make us so similar to these places in the Middle East that are governed by religion. Right? This is an example. This is what we have to look forward to. This is what the Christians in this country want to do. You can call them extremists. There's a lot of them that vote for it. Almost half of the country is down for this shit. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised if Florida and Texas at some point force streaming companies to not allow certain movies to be streamed in their state, which they could do. They could easily do that on any of these streaming platforms, make it regionally, so people would have to get VPNs in order to watch certain movies. Let's take a little break from the show to promote The Many Faces. That's right, I am also an artist. I do ink paintings on paper of abstract faces. A new face, a new painting gets released every single day over at inspireddisorder.com. So head on over to my website to purchase original artwork directly from the artist. Also, there are prints available for select images. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com, buy original art, buy prints if that's your jam, if you want 8x10 prints on high quality paper. Also, if you're looking to wear some art, there are shirts available with original artwork by myself. Select faces from The Many Faces are also available in t-shirt form. You go to inspireddisorder.com, you buy original artwork, you buy prints, you buy shirts. You're supporting an artist directly. And if you're the type of person that likes to invest in NFTs, there are also NFTs available for select faces. Go to inspireddisorder.com now. And now let's get back to the show. Let's move on. Last piece of bad news. One of Antarctica's most important glaciers is holding on, quote, by its fingernails. Scientists say the Thwaites Glacier, also known as the, quote, Doomsday Glacier, is melting faster than previously thought. Yeah, it's not good. You know, I watched a horrible movie called Moonfall this past week, where the moon falls, but it shows, like so many other movies by that director, big like tsunamis going in and flooding LA. And you know, you listen to scientists talk about how all these coastal cities, New York, LA, Florida, I mean, even cities that are already dealing with massive floodings, it's just going to get worse. It's getting worse. Heat waves are crazy. Storms are crazy. You're seeing riverbeds drying up in one area. You're seeing other areas getting decimated with flooding. There's going to be a lot of changing. A lot of things are going to be destroyed. A lot of people will be killed and displaced. You know, again, in this country, in America, where so many people are racist and hold the belief of white supremacists and demonize anybody that's not white, you know, make it exponentially harder for somebody from Mexico to legally get into this country than anybody who is white from a country of like white people. There's going to be a ton of refugees, not only from different countries. We're seeing the devastation in Pakistan, but also all from states, different states. They're just going to be like, it's amazing that people still live in states that constantly get flooded on a regular basis. It's amazing that a lot of people in California still live in places that burn up every year. But eventually it's going to get to a point where you just can't live in those areas anymore. Things are going to be changed. Cities are going to be erased. And all of those people that live in those cities are going to have to go somewhere else, whether it's from climate change or from laws that are being passed, because everything's the federal laws are being chopped away from because of the Supreme Court, and it'll be people leaving states because of the lack of freedoms they have now. A lot of things are going to change, and it's not going to be good. And it makes me feel like the things that I do in my life, making art and podcasts, are pretty worthless. I mean, I guess I'm giving a bit of entertainment, my uneducated opinions on this podcast, talking about current events, reviewing movies. I guess there's something to that. If people enjoy listening to my opinions on things, there is something to that. Maybe people enjoy the artwork I make and maybe want to buy some of it now and then. But overall, what I do is not benefiting society in any meaningful way, really. I am just adding to the distractions, showing you something shiny over here so you're not focused on the devastation that's going on over there. And as far as this glacier that's melting, I'm not surprised that it's melting faster than expected. I would imagine everything is going to be worse faster. But, you know, it's what happens when money is more valuable than human life. Letting a few people get ultra wealthy for absolutely no reason and allowing them to absolutely destroy the world in every way. This is what happens. And it's not surprising that this is what happens. And there's examples of it everywhere, of what happens when areas are devastated. And now we're just seeing it on a global scale. So, who knows? You know, I'm going to play the violin as the Titanic sinks into the ocean. and at least I'll be happy trying to do what I enjoy doing while I'm able to enjoy doing it. But, that is what it is. Let's do some shout-outs and get out of here. Shout-out to Vice, shout-out NBC Palm Springs, shout-out LA Times, and shout-out ABC News. But most importantly, shout-out to you.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.